In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to join edges of a knitted item together by using the mattress stitch technique. This technique is worked on the right side and creates an invisible seam which is actually hidden on the wrong side. This technique involves sewing the edges together, so you will need a sewing needle as well as your yarn that you use for knitting your garment. For this demonstration, I'm using sleeves from my current project, which I've knitted flat. So this sleeve I've already joined together using the mattress stitch technique, and this is what it looks like as the final result. And here's what the seam looks like on the wrong side. Before seaming, it's a good idea to block the items so that the fabric is easier to work with. Now I'm going to put away my finished sleeve and get the other sleeve in order to begin the demonstration. The first thing I need to do before seaming is to align the edges so that my joints look even and neat. Then I need to decide which side I'm going to start seaming the sleeve. So ideally this is from the cast-on edge if you've got a long enough tail to begin your seaming with. However, in my case, unfortunately, my tail is way too short to do anything with. So I'm going to use the top end of my sleeve as I've got long enough tail to be able to start this. If, like me, you've got a short tail from your cast-on edge, it is not a big deal because the end result will be very similar to whichever way you start this. It's just can be a little bit trickier to hide the tail from your cast-on if you've already got more work in that in that part of the sleeve. And just a quick mention about the edges, which I've knitted in garter stitch. However, this technique will work exactly the same if your edges are in knit stitches. The next thing I do, I establish the checkpoints by which I'm going to ensure the fabric is aligned. In my case, these are stitch increases along the edge. If you don't have stitch increases or you are joining a plain fabric, then you might want to put pins in to make sure that the fabric is joined evenly. Now, without any further ado, let's begin. So let's join the two pieces of fabric together. So thread your loose tail into the needle and then find the edge stitch on the opposite side of the fabric. And then insert the needle from the back to the front. And repeat this process once more by inserting the needle from the back to front into the opposite corner stitch. Then tighten to close the gap. Locate the horizontal bar, which is between the first and the second stitch. Insert the needle under and pull the yarn. Repeat the process on the opposite side. I'm going to work row by row, joining the horizontal bars on alternating sides. I'm also going to use the checkpoints, which are my stitch increases, to make sure that the fabric is well aligned. If your knitting is not too chunky, you can pick up 2 bars instead of 1. It will still give you the same result, but will make the seaming go faster. For the main body of the sleeve, I'm going to continue seaming by picking up 2 bars. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable to begin with as you're trying to hold the edges in place and locate the horizontal bars, but once you've got the hang of it, you'll find that the seaming actually goes quite quickly. Another thing to remember is to tighten the yarn from time to time. Not too tight so that the fabric is held too firmly together, but it tight enough so that the join disappears. If it happens that your fabric gets misaligned and the difference is not too big, for example, up to 1.5 centimeters, you can rectify the issue by picking up fewer bars on the shorter side. So for example, in my instance, I'm picking up 2 bars either side. So on the shorter side, I would pick up 1 bar in every 1 to 2 centimeters until the fabric is aligned again. This method only works if the difference is small. If you've got a larger difference, then you will need to rework the seaming again. If you've run out of yarn to continue, you can add another piece to it. Measure up at least double what is required to finish, and then tie a knot right at the seam of the fabric. From time to time, I also check the length of the 2 sides to make sure they are aligned. In the ribbed area, I'm going to pick up 1 horizontal bar instead of 2. It's quite a small piece of knitting, so I think it's going to look best if I pick up 1 bar on each side. Now the seaming is done, it's time to finish it off by closing the 2 edges, and just like at the beginning of the seaming technique, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Insert the needle from the back to the front in the opposite corner edge and do the same with the other one. The very final step in this process is to hide the loose ends. So I'm just going to push this one in onto the reverse side of the knitting and then use the needle to work it into the edge of the seam. In my case, the tail end is a bit too short to thread it onto the needle, but that's not a problem because I'm going to use my needle to thread the edges of the seam and then join the loose tail onto it and then pull it through the edges. Once the yarn is joined onto the needle, I just pull the needle and the yarn through the edges. I just carefully pull the yarn through the edges because it's quite short. It's folded in half, so I just need to work out which side is the loose one. and then pull it through like that.